What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Anime Kitchen, the show where we bring the food of anime and other media to life. Today's menu is Cold Soba, the favorite food of our favorite hot and cold Prince Zuko looking like hero, Shoto Todoroki from My Hero Academia. For those of you who don't know what Cold Soba is, they're noodles that are made primarily from buckwheat flour, which has a distinct nutty fragrance to them, and they're typically served with an awesome sweet and salty umami bomb of a sauce called suyu. With all that being said, aprons on, let's go.
Okay, so to begin today, we're going to make our concentrated suyu sauce base. In a small saucepan over high heat, we're going to add in a quarter cup of sake and let that come up to the boil. Now, if you don't have sake on hand, you can also substitute this using dry sherry or Chinese rice wine like I'm doing here. When the wine is rapidly boiling, we're going to ignite the vapors carefully to burn off the alcohol. You'll know that's done when the flames have completely died out. Now to the pan, we're going to add half a cup of light soy sauce and half a cup of mirin. Then at this point, if you're going super traditional and authentic, you'd add in a 5x5cm piece of kombu and 1 cup of packed bonito flakes before bringing the mixture to a bare simmer and allowing the bonito flakes and kombu to steep in the sauce for 15 minutes. But unfortunately, I don't have those ingredients on hand, so I'm using a 10-gram packet of instant dashi stock instead, which contains the exact same ingredients. We're going to whisk in the powder until it's fully dissolved and the sauce base is done. At this point, you can turn off the heat and leave the mixture to cool down, and then we can properly dilute it later when we're nearly ready to serve up. Alright, now let's get into making our noodles. To start our soba dough, we're adding in 160 grams of buckwheat flour and 80 grams of all-purpose flour into our mixing bowl. And then to the flour, we're going to drizzle in 130 milliliters of hot water. Not boiling, but hot enough that it makes you want to work fast. With the water added in, you're going to mix that into your flours until it forms into a tacky dough. And then if your bowl is too awkward to continue kneading in like mine is, we're going to turn it out and continue kneading this onto our work surface until it gets all nice and smooth like this. Now let's get on to rolling. Because soba noodles have a lower gluten content than most other noodles, there is less protein that's getting developed during the kneading process, which allows us to roll this out without having to rest the dough. To begin, we're going to lightly dust our work surface with all-purpose flour, then we're going to dust the top and bottom of our dough along with our rolling pin with more flour. Now we're going to roll this dough to form a large rectangle. If any edges start going wonky during this process, just nudge them back into the place with your rolling pin before continuing to roll it out. Now we're going to get halfway into the rolling process before remembering that you needed to reserve some dough for a second demonstration, so trim off some dough and then continue rolling this until you've got a large rectangle-ish looking dough that measures between 1.5 to 3 millimeters thick. Now to fold up the dough for cutting. To begin, we're going to flour one half of the dough generously from top to bottom with flour and fold it in half like a book. Then we're going to flour the bottom half of the dough and fold the top half down. And one last time we're going to add flour to the entire top of the dough and fold it in half again. Make sure you flour all these surfaces very well, as it will help with unfolding your noodles after they've been cut. Moving this nicely folded dough onto a cutting board, we're going to use a small chopping board, pastry scraper or other flat utensil as a guide, and then we're going to use a very sharp knife to cut our noodles to the same thickness as our dough. For example, if you roll the dough out to 3 millimeters, we're going to be cutting the dough in 3 millimeter intervals. Make sure you're using the sharpest knife that you have for this and you're using a rocking or sawing motion rather than a straight down cut so that we don't pinch the dough together. Now I'm just going to interrupt briefly with a cheeky B-roll shot to admire our lovely soba and also my new knife because I just love this thing to death. Once you've cut about a third of your dough, make sure to toss the noodles generously with flour to prevent them from sticking. When all your noodles are cut, ensure they're properly tossed with flour, then cover and set them aside on a floured baking tray until ready to use. Now, if like me, and you're not a soba master with 10 years experience, cutting soba properly is really freaking hard. So we're going to cheat a little bit and use a pasta roller because this is a very easy alternative that will give us very consistent results. I've got that reserved piece of soba dough that has been rolled into a thick oval and I've dusted the top and bottom of it with flour. Now I'm going to process that dough by putting it through the various settings of our pasta roller until it reaches our desired thickness. Once the dough is nicely rolled out, we're going to simply run this through our pasta roller spaghetti setting and immediately toss the noodles with more flour. And just like that, you've learnt 2 methods to make awesome homemade soba noodles from scratch. With all of our noodles now cut, we can get to the quickest part of this recipe, the cooking. Bring a large pot of unsalted water to the boil and drop in your soba noodles. Then you're going to cook these guys for anywhere between 1 to 3 minutes based on your preference and also the thickness to which you cut your noodles. Once your noodles are cooked, drain the noodles and immediately rinse them under cold water to remove any excess starch and film that has built up on the noodles during the cooking process. Don't skip this step because we don't want slimy noodles. Just trust me on this, it's very important to rinse your soba. After that, reserve your noodles in ice water until you're ready to serve. Now before serving up our noodles, we need to prepare our dipping sauce. So into our sauce bowl, we're going to add in a tablespoon of our concentrated suyu sauce along with about 3 tablespoons of water, give or take depending on how concentrated you want this to be. I'm going pretty bare bones with serving up this soba, so we've just got some sliced spring onion tops and our suyu sauce as our accompaniments. If you enjoy it, you could also serve this with some sliced radish and some wasabi as well. Regardless of our sides, we're going to place our drained and cooled soba noodles to the plate. And then for a little extra colour and texture, I'm going to top the noodles with some sliced seaweed and toasted sesame seeds. And there you guys have it, cold soba, completely from scratch from My Hero Academia. All that's left to do is give these a taste. Okay, chewing, and going straight back in for another bite, that's always a good sign. As you guys can probably tell, this dish turned out awesome. The sauce is sweet, salty, and packs a great umami punch from the dashi powder. The spring onions bring their vibrant, sweet, and slightly spicy notes to the party, and the soba noodles themselves have that distinct nutty fragrance that you would want from any type of soba dish. I can definitely understand why Todoroki likes this type of soba so much. As always guys, thank you so much for watching today's video. If you enjoyed it, let me know by giving a like down below and sharing it with your friends and family. Post in the comments what you'd like to see me make in the future, and subscribe to the channel for new content every week. Until then, roll up your sleeves, slap on an apron, and I'll see you in the anime kitchen. Peace.